So as you're seeing, we've begun a journey, and our journey began actually back in the spring of 2016. In the spring of 2016, our new superintendent, Dr. R. Stephen Green, commissioned a review, a curriculum audit. At that moment in time, we brought in a group of outside vendors that looked at our curriculum programs, looked at our instructional resources, looked at our assessments, and made some additional recommendations. And those recommendations included, let's look at how can we develop a curriculum for DeKalb County. Following up on that, in March of 2016, the advanced ed team came through and looked at our curriculum, went out into our schools, went into our classrooms, and met with over 1,000 teachers and looking at what we're doing in the areas of curriculum and instruction. With that being said, we came out of that evaluation with full 5-year accreditation. So we are a fully accredited school district. We are returned back to that. But also there became a priority strategy that we needed to not only continue the curriculum work, but we needed to begin the implementation, and we needed to see it through. And so that is part of what we are looking at to fully implement that comprehensive curriculum, but we need to implement that comprehensive curriculum consistently and with fidelity. And those were our charges that came out of that. So what we're going to be presenting to you today is that phase 1 of that newly developed curriculum, and we broke it out in 3 phases. The first phase truly looking at those tested areas for the Georgia milestones. But more importantly, what we're going to roll out to you is a curriculum that was designed by our teachers for our students. Yes, we are aligned to the Georgia Standards of Excellence. Yes, we are aligned to the national standards. Yes, we are aligned to the industry standards. But more importantly, this is a curriculum that was designed for us, by us. And that is something that Dr. Green is extremely proud of and shares repeatedly. But the work hasn't been done just by curriculum instruction alone. The work has been a cross-divisional work where we have looked at student support services. How can we ensure that our students are supported in the classroom emotionally, socially? How can we make sure that the curriculum is 21st century? And so we partnered with technology. How can we make sure that our teachers are prepared for the curriculum? We've partnered with our areas of professional development. And most importantly, what are we going to do to ensure that we create this partnership with our parents? We've looked at, and we'll share with you this evening, our curriculum connections, which are our K-8 parent guides. And we're going to be rolling out in the very near future a high school digest. And that became a part of the work with our communications department to continue to roll it out. As I've shared with you, what we've looked at is a rigorous curriculum design. And as we said with that rigorous curriculum design is going to be a detailed roadmap for our students. And we're going to provide that detailed roadmap, but we're also going to ensure that there are those high quality delivery systems in place. Now, this work was modeled off of research by Larry Ainsworth. Got to have a little research in there to make sure that we're looking at best practices, and it's research driven and research vetted. But it's a rigorous curriculum design that's looking at the learning outcomes that our students, what do they need to learn, and how do we know that they've got it? And that's where we're looking at the matching assessments. But more importantly, we're also going to make sure that it's not just I'm going to memorize and I'm going to share it back and spit it back at you, but we're going to create engaging learning scenarios where our students are going to have to apply what they've learned and demonstrate that for you. So gone are those days of the questions of why do I have to learn this? When am I ever going to use it? Because we're building that right into those engaging scenarios for our students. And those instructional strategies that are also included, because we recognize that there's not a single classroom with all the same type of student. Not all of our children are at the same point, and each of them are unique individuals that learning needs to be individualized for them. So we've included in learning strategies, instructional strategies for those students that need a little more support right now. Those students that may have a little bit of more of a learning gap because they've lacked some experience in the past. So how can we make sure that we're closing that gap? but we can't forget about our students that are exceeding, those that are above the bar. So how are we going to enrich it? How are we going to make it even stronger for those students there? And ultimately, what we're going to do with that curriculum, by differentiating, by individualizing, by personalizing that curriculum, we're going to ensure that our students are going to be prepared and going to be ready to be successful, whether it comes to college, university, trade school, the world of work, the military, whatever their next step is going to be when they leave us. So those were our challenges, those were our tasks, and those were our marching orders when we undertook this design. So as we move on, you're going to see on the screen behind me, you're going to see there's the old curriculum. But what I want you to concentrate on is that which is in orange, because that is the new part of the new curriculum. We're going to create a snapshot within the new curriculum that looks at educational activities. I'm going to ask you, just raise your hand real quickly. How many of you remember the days of sit and get? Where you went into the classroom, the teacher stood at the front of it, you took lots of notes, and and then you came back, and a few days later, maybe by the end of the week, you had a quiz, you had a test, and you had to spit it all out, and then forgot about it because you went on to the next set of things you had to learn. Yes, people with me here? All right, good. So what we did here is we built in those, as I shared, those engaging, those scenarios, those activities, so students are now applying those skills along the way. It isn't about I'm going to memorize it and give it back, but I'm going to use it so that it becomes a part of my learning process. We're also going to make sure that there's a pace for the instruction. We want to make sure that our teachers get to everything and expose our students to everything, so when that test comes at the end of that course, they've had that exposure, they've had that opportunity, and we've provided them the ability to learn it, to be able to demonstrate it, and to ensure that there's mastery going on. We're going to capture the skills, we're going to capture the content, and we're going to make sure that there's assessments that are aligned that are going to help us measure what have our students learned. We know we've taught it, but how do we know that they've learned it? And that's where we've got to be able to reach back in and grab that. As I shared with you, that extension for our students in the gifted area, but also we recognize that we have students that are within our schools that English is not their first home language. So what are we going to do for our EL students? What are we going to do for our special needs students? What are we going to do for our different learners that are within the classroom? And then again, we want to make sure that those engaging scenarios are going to monitor the standards of the curriculum, but we're going to monitor it not only just for the alignment, but we're going to monitor it for rigor, we're going to monitor it for relevance, and we're going to ensure that there's opportunities for relationships built right into it. So with that being said, now to get into the new curriculum, what I've been talking about is we've gone from the days of teacher-led to teacher-facilitated. We've gone from the days of student-receiver to student-centered. We're now providing our students with opportunities for choice and voice within the program. So they're going to have the opportunity to help decide their process. They're going to have the opportunity to make choices within their assignments. They're going to have opportunities to develop in a program, to develop a project, to develop an artifact that is going to be meaningful to them, not just meaningful to someone else. We're going to look at different mediums, and that means we're going to look at print, we're going to look at digital, we're going to look at hands-on, we're incorporating STEM activities, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics right into it. And we're going to make sure that there's communication, collaboration, that there's critical thinking, and we're going to ensure that there's problem solving embedded across the curriculum. Our teachers now have a weekly planner that is aligned for them within the curriculum, and it allows our teachers to know what needs to occur within that week, and it allows our teachers to design their lessons around ensuring that what our students need to know, be able to understand, and should be able to do by the end of that week. Ms. Stepney, would you join me? Because I'm going to ask Ms. Stepney to bring it into a little bit about what is our child expected to learn.
Good evening. As I take the next part of our presentation, it's important that you have some tools before you. If you are a parent, we know that this information can sometimes be overwhelming because we are educators and we talk this talk all day, every day. So we want to bring it down to a level where all of us can understand, because parents, you are the best teachers at home. So we want to arm you with that information so that as you normally ask that question, what did you do at school today? We want to help you shape some of those questions so that it is more meaningful for you as you have the opportunity to connect with the school. And Dr. Glanton is connecting me to the web so that I can show you some tools later on in the presentation. The first document that you have, I hope that you picked up, is a yellow sheet. This yellow card will allow you to record any questions that you may have. And our K-12 department at a certain point will collect the cards. That will allow us to sort the cards and then offer some feedback to you tonight. If we cannot answer all of your questions tonight, we are crafting what we call the FAQ, and we will publish that document so that you can receive a response. So does everyone have a yellow sheet? If you do not, the coordinators will assist us. Mr. Lewis knows where they are. Okay? The next tool, you have this glossy brochure. The glossy brochure will afford you the opportunity as a parent or even as a school leader to go back and keep these handy so that if a parent asks you questions like, what's different? What's unique? What are you all talking about when you say curriculum? Then you have this handy guide that you can share with the parent. Dr. Martin has covered, I'll wait just one second. Sorry. Oh, we're still getting all of our items. Dr. Martin covered the why, the charge from our superintendent, and more importantly, where we are today. So this particular guide, after this is all over today, you can go back and refer to it, and if you have more questions, then you can shoot us an email and say, you know what, I had an opportunity to really read and focus on what was written. I still have more questions, okay? For all of our parents, the green sheet. I would like for you to post this on the refrigerator or on the mirror, wherever your child will see it. This particular document is what, when you walk away tonight, I would like for you to make sure as a parent, you have access to see how your child is doing. Teachers do a great job of entering grades, but if we do not have a partnership where you are monitoring it with us, then we cannot together work for the good of your child. What do I mean? If little Stacy has an issue and she does not perform well on this assessment, then I hope when the parent logs in, you can see, she normally makes A's. She made an F on that test. I need to email the teacher. Let's talk to the teacher. So today we're going to show you, if you do not know how to access your child's grades, we're going to show you how you do that, okay? But this is important, and we will reference this shortly. All right, so let's ask ourselves a few questions. The first question, what is my child expected to learn? If you have researched the Georgia Department of Education's website, then you have learned that there are many tools out there. And we always talk about the word standard or standards. When I was in school, we called them objectives. So what are we saying to you parents? Students are responsible for learning certain things. We just refer to them as standards. There are state standards, there are national standards. Why do we even entertain national standards? Because we want our students to be competitive. We want them to be able to move beyond the DeKalb County School District. We want them to be able to apply or join the military, do whatever it is they want to do. So we are concerned with not only Georgia, but national standards. We also look at what we call guiding practices. And you may hear that, you may hear your student say, my teacher said a good math student is able to do this. You may hear your student in the first grade say, my can-do statement was this today, if they're learning a language. And you're looking at that little first grader like, what did you say? So we have instilled in our students that there are certain behaviors, certain look-fors that we are seeking in the classroom to make sure that they are learning. So together, when you put this all together, parents, we are simply saying DeKalb has focused on what our students need to know, do, and understand. And we have gone beyond Georgia. We've looked nationally because we want your child to be competitive. We also want you to know what can you do at home when little Johnny gets home and you say to him or her, hey, guess what? What did you do at school today? Don't stop there. I want you to act like you're smarter than, I always tell the little fourth graders when we go and visit, boy, you all are smarter than the average fifth graders because they can outsmart us. I want you to have the upper hand. When you ask that question, say to the baby, what standards did you learn today? See what they're able to tell you. And then if they say blah, 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 follow up again with a different question and say, how did you engage in the lesson today? If your student can begin to talk about the standards, it may not make perfect sense to you, but if they're using the language about what they learned today, we're making headway together. So we want you just to ask that pertinent question. What did you do today? What did you learn today? And then keep probing the child. The next question, what are the learning outcomes for each unit? When you look at this, this is educational talk again. Essential questions, big ideas. You may ask, why are essential questions important? The reason that an essential question is important is to keep the teacher focused. I am a biology geneticist major, love genetics. When I taught biology, I probably spent 3 weeks on Punnett squares and on different geneticists. Most kids could care less. You know when they perked up? When we did the M&M lab, because that was something that was relevant to them. But I spent way too much time on something that was important to me. So we have to sometimes rein in the instruction and say, we have a focus. And the focus of the lesson is what we call the essential question. So parents, let me give you a tip. When you walk into any classroom, you should see the essential question posted on the board. If you have a parent conference and you want to ask the teacher, hey, what was the essential question of today? Or what's the essential question of the unit, the week? Ask the teacher. They should be able to tell you. Then we have something called big ideas. Those are like the big takeaways. What do we want you to know ultimately from the lesson? We're no longer learning in isolation, meaning, how many of you took algebra? Okay, how many of you took geometry? Great. Did you take statistics with it? No, say it again. Afterwards. Wow, we took it after. You know why? Because back then we learned things in isolation. We didn't know the importance of connecting the dots for children. Because kids will tell you, I'm finished with algebra. I got to go take geometry with Miss Barnes now. They never connect the dots and the relevancy of, why are you learning algebra? Why are you learning geometry? It takes Dr. Bodison to tell this story, but when she taught geometry at Columbia High School, she talks about a bridge often, that she taught geometry using a bridge example. Kids travel over bridges all of the time. They don't know the math that it takes to build a bridge. So when we're teaching now, we're trying to connect it so that they're no longer thinking, I'm just taking this class and it'll be over shortly. I never need it again. Okay? All of us have to balance a checkbook, right? All of us go to the doctor, and sometimes they give us, a diagnosis, and we might recognize some of the words, but we have those intuitive research skills now. Well, what can we do? Go and investigate, because we've learned how to do that. We're teaching the kids about inquiry. We're teaching them how to research. So essential questions and big ideas. Another tidbit for parents. When your children come home, a question that you should pose. What was the essential question? They may tell you the same thing for the next 3 days, and that's okay. They may tell you that for the next week. That's okay. But if they keep telling you that, and we're in week 2, I need for you to call Dr. Glanton in Southwest DeKalb and say, Dr. Glanton, my child keeps talking about the same essential question. Do you mind checking on that class? And the only reason I'm using him is this is his school. It could be Dr. Tart. It could be Mr. Harvey. It could be any of our Region 4 superstars present today. Parents, reach out to them and say to them, help me. My child is not talking strange to me, if you will. They're not doing that edu-talk, okay? Oh, goodness, this is my favorite part. And Dr. Martin has already introduced this. This component is what makes our new curriculum very different. This is why we invested so heavily. I can hear Ms. McDuffie. She came in just a little bit later when we did our introductions, but if you don't mind waving. She's our visual and performing arts coordinator. But she's a proponent of the whole child. This summer, when she had to assist in summer school, and I see one of our new principals here, Ms. Sears, when she assisted at Jolly this summer, Ms. McDuffie was in the cafeteria teaching reading through art. I was so amazed. I said, Ms. McDuffie, this is what we need our teachers to do. I'm so excited that you were able to connect and hook these third graders through art and get them excited about reading. Parents, that's our new normal. Teachers are not saying, pull out the book and read from cover to cover anymore. We are demanding that they cross disciplines, that they are learning science in math, that they're learning math in reading, that they're learning social studies in world languages. Everything needs to connect, okay? So in our engaging scenarios, what's the purpose? Inspire the child. Pique curiosity. It is an opportunity for them to apply what they have learned thus far. Now, parents, this is not easy for us. This is where, and I'm going to be honest, our teachers are saying, help. Our teachers are saying, do we have to do all of these different tasks? Do we have to do each one? And our answer collectively is yes. Let me tell you why. We're trying to move our students from basic recall. Y'all know what basic recall is? If I stood and said, tell me the ABCs, how many of you could not do it? Okay, how many of you could do it backwards without a problem? So let's try. Anybody want to stand? Try backwards. Why? Because we taught it to you how? Forward, and we made you do what? Repeat, 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 right? So we can all do basic recall, but the minute I challenge you and have you to do it differently, what happens? You shut down, you start thinking, she better not call on me because I can't do it. Something as simple as the ABCs, but you all know it. So what we're doing is taking them from task 1 and moving them to task 4. Now, all units don't have 4, so let me say that. But the idea, do you see those steps? Everybody see the steps? What do you think is happening with the learning? We're taking them from basic recall to thinking and thinking and thinking, thinking, thinking. We are making them apply what they have learned. So the goal is no longer to recite your ABCs. Okay? My favorite, when will my child be assessed? Now, parents who are present, there are many educators in this room, and we know what our testing calendar looks like. We have reduced the number of times we're going to assess your child. We have. It doesn't feel like that, but we have. So let me tell you how this works. When they first arrive in school, the first 2 weeks, we give them what we call the measures of academic progress. You may have heard your child refer to it as the map. So they come home, Mom, I have to take the map. Dad, I have to take the map. That is our first indicator to tell us where your child is. What do they need? So we do that at the beginning of the year, we do it in the middle of the year, and we do it at the end of the year. Anybody in the audience that's not an educator? Not an educator. Why do you think we do it 3 times? If we're doing it at the beginning, middle, and end. Parents, what are we trying to give you? Say it again. Growth. Thank you, wherever you are, parent. Yay. We want to make sure that we are seeing your child grow, because that's the purpose of education. It is not to keep teaching the teacher. It is to make sure your child is growing. So parents, write it down now. If your school has not sent you your child's individual Report requested. They can print it. It is about your baby. Ask for the report. And then you keep that in a safe file, and in January you want it again. And then you compare the two. And the nice thing about our reports, it tells you, the parent, what they need help with. So it's very informative. The next way we are assessing our students. With this new curriculum, we decided we needed post checks. So this is where I want you to get your green sheet. Hold up your green sheet. And I think I gave mine away. You'll see that, thank you. We have what we call the grading protocol. Mr. Rabby's in the back in case you need one, and Mr. Lewis, in case you need a green sheet. You will see that we have what we call weighted categories. And the weighted categories, thank you, tell you, the parent, where we're going to put certain items. So we have in each unit, we've called or created what we call a pre-assessment. The word pre means we're going to give it to you before learning happens. Let me tell you why we do that. We want to know, what does your child already know? We're not trying to penalize your child. It is a great way for a teacher to say, all of my students understand photosynthesis, but they don't understand this component of it. That way the teacher can then spend time and bring them up to where there's a level of understanding. So we have what we call pre-assessments. So parents, let's look at this together. Oops, it's upside down. You will see the very first category. What's the weight? Does it say 20%? Somebody loud. 0% for a reason. Pre-assessments go in the category of 0% because, again, we are not going to penalize your child. It is for the teacher to understand where your child is. Okay? Now I want you to go down to the next category, and it's at the very end. It's called summative assessments or assessments of learning. When we give your child the post-assessment for a unit, that means they have learned, or we have exposed them to the standards. So now we want to see what they've learned. So we do grade those. So if you see that coming home, we want them to have a grade for the post-assessment. Okay? So on this particular document, where are we putting it? The refrigerator or the mirror? It is your reminder, parent, you must check these. If you start seeing the unit test, the summative post-test going down, you need to do what? Email a teacher. You need to call the counselor. Hey, I need a little help here. Something's going awry. My child may need to go to tutorial. My child may need additional support. How can I help my child at home? But you have to log in to see it. Okay, so the next component, teacher-created assessments. Now, teachers give projects. I see some nods out there. Parents, I know you have to help with projects. Teachers give essays. Teachers give things that they have to stand and recite or explain. I was in a pre-K classroom today, and the students had to do a choice board. It was really intriguing to watch a 4-year-old take picture magnets and put them on a choice board to where it's an appropriate choice or it is a less desired choice. So we're changing the way we teach the children so they know that it is okay. You have to make choices, but let's learn how to categorize them. So even at 4, we are stretching our students, and that was a teacher-created assessment. She was grading them. The students will never bring home a sheet of paper that has an A, B, C, or D on it. They won't have an A, 100%. She was making little check marks in her book. So sometimes teachers are assessing the students, but you don't see what I call return on investment, a grade. So stay with me, parents. I'm going to push us. DeKalb has now embarked on a journey where we are doing what we call standards-based grading. It's huge. It's not comfortable. So on your green sheet, go back to where it says pre-assessments prior to learning. You're going to see a category called engaging performance scenarios. I'm going to connect some dots for you. We just told you we're spending a lot of time with these different tasks, right? So now I'm telling you we're putting it in the 0% category. So why would you make my child do all of this work? The reason we put it in that category is parents, you're going to see a strange grade. You're going to see something like a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. And I know you took algebra with me. So you're quickly going to say 4 out of 4 is 100. 3 out of 4 is a what? 2 out of 4, and 1 out of 4. And oh my goodness, you're on 2 wheels running to the school, right? So that is not the purpose of standards-based grading. Each task has what we call a scoring rubric, a scoring guide. That guide is telling the teacher, if I have displayed the following, then I have covered what was intended to learn, so I get a 4. If I didn't do everything, but I did most of it, I get a 3. So parents, if you start seeing a whole bunch of 1s, it's time for a conference. It's time for you to say to the teacher, I know this is not weighted in my child's grade, but it's telling me something as a parent. I need to see what they're not learning, okay? So again, 4, 3, 2, and 1 does not mean 25, 50, 75, and 100. It is standards-based grading, meaning I was able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. That's hard. It's really hard. So how do we help the teachers grade along the way? Each task has different components. So you're going to see the grades throughout. Okay, but that overall task grade, you're going to see in that category. Okay, that was an example of an assessment, but you really can't see it. And what we want to share with you on an example of an assessment, and to prepare for what we call the Georgia milestones, students have to write now. Students have to write. So parents, you don't do this, I know you don't. But when I grew up, my mom was a teacher. So she would go and say, Stacy, go sit, and here's your tablet, and I want you to write. You will not do this repeatedly. And I'd have to write it 50 times or 100 times, right? Like I will not chew gum. I will not put it in my sister's hair. I will not do whatever. So I hated to write because she used it as a negative. I need for us to learn how to use it as a positive. So parents, help us help your child write. We are asking them to write and explain on assessments. We need your help. Any opportunity that you have at home to have them write, example, write a letter to your friend, write an email, and I know I'm dating myself when I say write a letter. They don't even know what that is. Write an email, not a Snapchat, because they write like they text, and that is problematic. Our test scores were impacted by that. We have some brilliant students that passed the literacy, the English part of the test, but they didn't pass the written part, because they cannot express themselves. So I'm telling you today, we need your help. Write, 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 write. And then we have what you are accustomed to seeing, multiple choice. But the multiple choice is not like what we had. It's not true, false. It is harder. Let me tell you, harder. Kids hate those. You know why? Because they have a word, and I'm going to throw it out there as one of our terms, a distractor. The distractor's purpose is to make me think as a child, I got the right answer. So the children have to read it from the beginning to the end to really discern what is the answer. So parents, put anything before your child to read, whether that is a cookbook, a magazine, the newspaper, a journal, put it before them to read. And then I challenge you to help them. You read it too, and come back and follow up with questions. Help them think, and don't ask the basic questions like, what was the story about? Who was the main character? That doesn't help the child. You have to ask the child, what did you learn from this book? And then go to the why. Kids love the why. They'll keep doing this all day long because they think you want them to defend what they are saying. And parents, you have a cunning way of knowing if your child is telling you the truth or pulling your leg, if they read it or not. So put something before them to read, and write. Because our assessments, they have to be able to read the language, and they have to be able to write. Now this is the part where Dr. Martin is going to come back, And we have what we call a curriculum management system. And in the curriculum management system, you matter. And she is going to explain that part.
Thank you. As, excuse me, as Stacy shared, we do have a curriculum management system, and we call it the 3 M's, where we're going to monitor for implementation, as I shared with you earlier about the fidelity and the extent to which we're making sure it's happening. We're going to measure, so we're going to look at how are our students doing, how are our teachers doing, how is our curriculum doing, and then we're going to modify. And the graph behind you, you're going to see, is very cyclical. We started at the very top. As Stacy shared with you, we looked at the standards, we looked at the alignment, we did our analysis, we identified the priority standards, the supporting standards, then we went about the business of writing. From there we brought it to the board, we ensured that the board was fine with it, the board was approving of it, and the board adopted it. So we now have a board adopted curriculum, something we did not have in the past. We then went about the business of professional development and implementation. And so this summer, our professional development department trained over 4,000 teachers. Throughout the summer, we were going every day, twice a day. We had administrators, we had paraprofessionals. We actually had members from the State Department of Education come down because they heard about the great work that was going on in DeKalb and they wanted to see it. And less than a month ago, it was actually 3 weeks ago, we had the Deputy Superintendent for School Improvement come into our school board office, met with Dr. Green, and she said that she had been, Dr. Stephanie Jones, had been looking at our curriculum, had been looking at our lesson plan template, and said it was head and shoulders above, that it is the model for what should be going on across the state of Georgia. So that was great kudos for the work that our teachers have done, our team members have done. So we did the implementation with the ongoing professional development, but we're not done because we have to come back and we have to evaluate. And that's where, as Stacy shared, that's where it comes in. Currently, we are having monthly meetings with teachers. Big part of the agenda, what's working, what's not working, what can we do to make it better, what do we need to eliminate. In this summer, we're going to provide an opportunity for you, the parents, as well, to come in and look at it, to share your feedback. But we don't have to wait to the summer. If you find something that you're having a question about, because we're in phase 1, we want to hear. We want you to share with your principal at your school, share those concerns, share those kudos. We like the kudos. Share those things that are working very well. And if you have questions, we want to know that because we want to make sure that it's meaningful and that it's also going to make an impact on your student. And then again, as you see, we come back down in the evaluation, we go back into the implementation because we're going to modify. That my 3rd M. We're going to modify and we're going to make sure that it's even better because curriculums don't sit on a shelf. They should be living, breathing documents that are continually improving. As Stacy shared with you, and I'm older than her, when I did algebra and geometry and algebra 2 and then looked along that line, they were all separate. Curriculum now is so integrated, it's so interconnected, it's so fluid, and it's a living, breathing document. Thank you. So, I'm going to give it back because Stacy's been sharing with you some of our tools that we have for you. We're going to share some more with you right now when we start talking about the instructional resources because parents, we want you to go out and look at it, see what's happening across the curriculum and across the disciplines because the more informed you are, the better then you can inform us as to what's working, what's not, and what more do you want to see. All right? Thank you. Sure.
Okay, I'm
Help
not
her.
going to use a lot of eye contact because I have to manipulate. Oh, thank you, Dr. Blanton. Okay, so before you change over the screen, parents, I want you to look up. Oh, never mind. At the very top, it said the K-8, curriculum connections. We're going to share with you the curriculum connections. They went live over the weekend. This has been an incredible journey. We started this process during the curriculum writing, and it took all of us to put this together. The reason we put this together is so that you, the parent, have a guide where you can say, what is it that my first grader needs to know in English, math, science, social studies, health and physical education, visual and performing arts, dual immersion or world languages, instrumental music, science. What do they need to know? And then how can I support them? What tests will they take? So we are going to go out on the web so you'll know, yes, thank you, what tools are available to help you. So how can you find this? It is live on the web. If you have access to the web, you can even do this on your phones. You can go out and across the banner, there are 4 or 5 different banners. There's a new banner today that says, Explore the K-8 Curriculum Connection. So if you click that for me, sir. So you have this page. When you go to this page, it invites you to explore the curriculum connections. And Dr. Glanson, if you don't mind, click on first grade.
First grade, here we go.
So when you click on first grade, let me give you the disclaimer. These are not children in DeKalb. These are purchased stock photos so that we can make sure we protect our children, okay? So that's number one. And these are not our teachers for the same reason. And these guides are pages and pages. Many parents have said that knew we were creating this, are you going to print them for us? Unfortunately, we cannot print all of them for parents. Why? Because they are living documents. If we need to make a change, we're going to go right into it and make a change. But this is so that you, the parent, have that guide and you know what to expect. All right, so you'll see the way that all of them are set up. You have the contents, the overviews on the left. And then you have a curriculum overview. Let's go to language arts. Our language arts coordinators work together. They research the standards, whether it was state, national, as well as what are those big things we want them to know, what are the guiding practices. And they gave to you as a parent, this is the synopsis. So as you go through the year, this is what your second grader should learn. Mathematics, Dr. Bodison is here. Dr. Bodison and Ms. Bateman work together to identify. So if you are a second grader, and many times parents say to us, I don't understand the new math. It's not new math. But we have given it to you in a way that you know as a parent how to help your child. Science, same thing. Mrs. McBean Warner is here. Dr. Jackie Stevens, they're working together to make sure we have given the teachers the tools to accomplish this. Social studies, Ms. Vincent is here tonight. She works with Ms. Weston, same thing, a narrative of what you need to know. And we keep going, world languages, dual immersion. And I'm going to skip, we have visual and performing arts, music, health and physical education, character education, gifted education, counseling and advisement, special education, EL, ESOL, English to speakers of other languages, testing, parent portal, this is my favorite part. So principals, this is where I want you to jot it down, especially if you are a K-8 principal. You can send out a blast telling parents to go and look and pull down the one for their children, or the ones for their children. And that last page, if they have not done that, challenge them to get it done. That is to secure a personal account so that they can see their child's progress throughout the year. So this explains to them exactly what they have to do. Now there is a process, we know that, and our registrars are working. So we have to give that disclaimer. If you send out a blast, you say to them, please sign up today. It may take 48 hours, but please sign up today. And then the guide ends. All of them have the same format, and they will be updated and kept on the web so that it's easily accessible to all. For our high school parents, again, we are creating what we call the High School Digest. When you are a secondary parent at the high school level, it's important that you know what the courses are and what the course requirements are. An example, if your child has signed up for a digital computer class and they end up in an intro class, that's different from an intermediate class. But the way we abbreviate and you get that schedule, you really don't know. But what we also give you are the numbers of the course. You could go to that quick guide and say, oh, my baby's in the wrong class. They're in the second class but needed the first class. So it's really important that we give you that type of information. And also when you are applying to colleges, sometimes colleges will question, what did your child learn in a course? Well, we're giving you that description. So your child can pull that information quickly and share it with the college. So High School Digest is coming, we hope before December. And we already have it in the raw form. It looks like a spreadsheet for us, but we want it fancy so that it is appealing and pleasing and people can access it. So it is coming. Questions? If you have any questions, please hold up your yellow cards and the K-12 team will assist.